What is revealed to us isn't simply that God loves us, but that God is love. And this love is the fullness of all life. God's law, then, has to be love. Love of Him above all others and all else. And as Jesus, who is God incarnate, thus the personification of love itself, has added, we must also try to love our neighbor as much as we love ourselves. In these two commands, the whole law of 613 commandments is in fact summed up. And so if we keep this great commandment, all the others are fulfilled. It's simple, and so it should be easy, but it isn't really. No, the only portion of those two parts of the great commandment that the majority of people are likely to keep with any consistency is love of self, looking out for ourselves, looking out for our own self-interests and our well-being above and before anyone and anything else. But after all, that is almost instinctual to us as human beings. Indeed, to love God and love neighbor, in contrast, has to be deliberately intentional, because the type of love we are focusing on there isn't a feeling, it is a decision. And while it may be accompanied by emotion at times, it has its origin in our will more than originally in our heart. As Jesus specifically taught, we express our love for Him and His Father by keeping the commandments they have given us. And we love our neighbor not by feeling all sorts of warm, positive emotions at the thought or sight of them, but rather by disciplining ourselves to want the same good things for them that we want for ourselves, and then being willing to step up if necessary to ensure that they do have these whenever it might be in our power to help make that happen. So by definition, there was a very powerful love story broadcast on the news just yesterday. It had to do with someone opening fire on a large Halloween gathering in Orlando, Florida. And while certainly the shooting itself is clearly the complete opposite of love, it was reported that before the gunman could even be identified, first responders, including police and rescue workers, went running not away, but into the midst of that dangerously violent scene without a bit of regard to their own safety, to aid those already wounded and to try to prevent others from suffering the same fate. Indeed, this is real love as Jesus defines it. They did not know who they were rescuing, only that they had to do what they could, as that is indeed what they would want for themselves or if their loved ones were in such a dangerous situation. And so, without hesitation, they risked their very lives for complete strangers, as so often first responders do each and every day. But let us be clear, this is imitation of the love of Jesus Christ, who would lay down his life for the salvation of all of us, whether we would acknowledge his sacrifice on our behalf, and be grateful for it or not. In light of this gospel message, and the point of the liturgical year in which we are now finding ourselves, the month of November, the last month of our church year, in which we are encouraged to prayerfully remember those who have preceded us in death. Pray that they would be purged of any stain of sin, so as to be fit to enter God's kingdom. While we may, as we should, be praying for those whom we have known and loved in this life, that they be given admission to that place of light and peace in the Father's house, promised to them and prepared for them by Jesus himself. Would we, on the other hand, think to also pray for those we knew and perhaps didn't so much like, or who didn't like us, or treated us in some way that was unjustly or unkindly while in this life? Indeed, in accord with the great commandment as revealed by Jesus, that would be a most loving thing to do, because while it may not change our ability to like them, yet we would truly be loving them, because we would be asking for them no less than what we would want for ourselves and those we love, which is the greatest gift of all, heaven, and doing what we can through prayer to help them attain it. Indeed, all of this is summed up in the 4th chapter of the first letter of St. John. He tells us this truth: no one has ever seen God, yet if we love one another, God abides in us, and his love is perfected in us. So as this month of November begins with a reminder of this great commandment, may the days of this month give us plenty of opportunity to put that commandment into practice in simple but meaningfully profound ways, so that at month's end we might be ever more confident that we are doing what we have been commanded to do. And then not only at the end of our church year, but at the end of all years, give us the assurance that we are destined to be part of that kingdom where love is citizens' only requirement, because God is love.